titles because of his character, and it was the character that allowed him to go on in that fight. And also one other thing it shows you, as bad as Ali felt, because I remember he said to Sports Illustrated, like you said, it's the closest I felt to dying. And after the 10th round when Frazier made that great comeback, I remember reading where Ali said, I thought about quitting. So it tells you two things. It tells you that even the great ones, they might think about it, but what counts is what they do. And one other thing, old trainer used to always tell me, hey, no matter how your fighter feels, remind him that the other guy is feeling the same.
Yeah. Question was simply, when do you tell a fighter to quit? You know, and I know that's the hardest thing in the world. And the answers are always the same thing. Well, if he doesn't get me, he'll get somebody else. The money's still there. He wants to fight. He loves the glamour. He loves everything. Thomas, you've been with him a lot now. Do you agree that nobody could have made him stop fighting at that time?
Ali wanted to fight. It was what he defined himself by. The three greatest fighters of all time were Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, and Joe Louis. All fought longer than they should have. All of them, wound up in their later years in less than ideal condition. There's a message in that for anybody who's listening. But what Ali showed in Manila more than any other fight was that he was a warrior. He was a gladiator, that underneath that sweet exterior, there was a mean, tough son of a gun at work. And what he said in that fight to all those people who called him a pretty boy, he'll fold when the going gets tough, here I am, this is my courage. Because Ali and Joe Frazier weren't fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world that night. They were fighting for something much more important. They were fighting for the championship of each other. Absolutely. They both knew that this was the last time they were going to face each other, that whoever won that night, that's who history was going to recognize as the greatest fighter. And, you could almost call that fight a draw, because after the 14th round, Ali went back to his corner and said, cut him off.
Yeah.
He just said he couldn't go anymore. And Angelo ignored him. He started sponging him down, getting him ready for the next round. Now, my own sense is if the bell had rung for 15, Ali would have been out there.
Angelo, thank God for Eddie Futch. He stops the fight. But suppose he would have let Frazier get off that stool, if he could have. Suppose he would have let him get off and face what could have happened in the 15th round.
I think what got Eddie Futch to stop the fight, the round before, Muhammad hit this guy with a right hand and the mouthpiece went flying, which shows the guy was disoriented. And when Eddie got it back to the corner, he knew the guy had nothing left. He was empty. If he'd have got up, he'd have got knocked out, mortal cinch.
You think he could have been hurt?
Could have been hurt very easily, because in that condition, that's when a fighter gets hurt. Got nothing to go with, no resiliency.
I always felt that. I jumped off the boat because I'm a physician. I knew what damage was being done to him. You, on the other hand, were in a different position. You're in a boxing thing. I've never heard you say why you stayed on when you knew that all of that damage was going to build up to a disability in the end. Why did you stay on?
I was the trainer of Muhammad Ali at the get-go. I was the trainer at the end. I'm his trainer and friend to this day. So I feel good about it. My relationship has been 100%, and it's 100% today.
Thank you, Angelo, and we'll see you soon.
Tommy Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard. Fight 1, The Comeback Kid, 1981, round 14. As Muhammad Ali fades from boxing's limelight, an affable and gregarious Sugar Ray Leonard enthralls the nation with his quick and flamboyant boxing style. Less than 3 years after wowing millions with his 1976 Olympic gold medal victory in Montreal, an undefeated Sugar Ray conquers Wilfred Benitez with a 15th round knockout to capture the WBC welterweight title. After stunning Roberto Duran and Ayub Kalule, Sugar Ray is eager for a much-anticipated welterweight unification showdown against WBA champ Thomas Hitman Hearns on September 16, 1981 in Las Vegas. In 1981, America emerges from a 444-day Iranian hostage crisis and a fourth consecutive year of double-digit inflation. After a 6-year absence, America lofts back into space with the Space Shuttle Columbia. As always, a good, appetizing prize fight outdraws almost any event. This usually means a heavyweight fight, but in this decade, the focus falls on two equally matched welterweights, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns. once again, Angelo Dundee is summoned to build a champion, matching Leonard in a series of fights. Sugar wins them all, and wins them in style. In Emmanuel Stewart's tough crunk gym in Detroit, Tommy Hearns is running his course to greatness. He not only wins, he obliterates his opponents. With an ascent marked by extraordinary knockout power. Hearns has an impressive physique. His head is small, but his shoulders are huge and his arms are long. He has the wingspan of an eagle. Sugar Ray is sleek, but Hearns is top-heavy, giving him his destructive punching power. Hearns is terrifying. So the match is set. The pugilist Sugar Ray will run and box. Hearns, the grim destroyer, the Motor City Cobra, will track him down and punch out his lights. Or so it seems.
Judge, you've raised a good issue, the weight issue with Hearns.
The thing that surprised me about that fight, Manny, is when I saw they announced the fight, I saw it on television, and they announced Tommy, I believe it was 43.5 or 45, I thought to myself, my God, he's a big guy. He should have been, at the first weigh-in, maybe 47.5, get off the scales, walk around, spit some, go to the head, take a pee, come back on the scales, and then top out right at 47. But when he came in 2 or 3 pounds under, that really, and then a 15-round fight, I thought, how's he going to do it?
Mills, you just hit the nail on the head. That was the key. It was not any one particular punch that was a big factor in the fight, as much as the situation of Tommy coming in underweight and overtrained. That was the first super fight for Thomas and I both. Normally for big fights, Thomas had always came in about 150, maybe the day of the fight we had to sweat to bait. He was a big welterweight. But for that particular fight, he was a skinny welterweight. It was a difference.
Going into the fight, before Bell won, what did you want Tommy to do?
Going into the fight, I knew that Ray had always, even as an amateur, had difficulty with tall fighters. And I knew that was going to be a problem for him in the fight. And I figured that Tommy was not going to be able to just come out and bomb Ray Leonard out like he did everyone else. Because Ray Leonard not only was a very good technical fighter, tremendous stamina, and I knew the stamina was going to be a big factor for him. And I figured that Tommy would have to box very carefully, but I figured he could outbox Ray Leonard when everyone else was looking for him to come out as a puncher.
Angelo, what did you see in Hearns that made you go crazy in the corner and send Sugar Ray out to do or die? What was it you saw?
Ray did the unforgivable sin. He slowed down to the pace of Tommy Hearns. You don't win fights slowing down to the opponent's pace. You got to go your pace. And Ray Leonard's pace was pick, move, slide. This was Ray Leonard. Ray Leonard was getting out of fashion what he was supposed to do.
So your instruction was what?
Go, get him, slide, move, get to the guy, bother him, take charge.
So in the round before he stops him, he slams him a beautiful body shot to the ribs. Why would that do so much damage on Tommy Hearns? He folded after that.
Perfect shot. That's a shot to the liver. It gets a lot of guys out of there. A lot of guys can tell you, man, they knocked dead, and the guys are tough. There's no tougher guys than fighters. They take that shot in the liver, the legs go, down they go.
Thank you, Angelo. Now we're at the 14th round, and this is where Tommy looks like he's back. He looks like he's fighting.
Well, even though Tommy was looking good to the public, I was seriously doubtful that he was going to be able to make it to 15 rounds. I was talking to him between rounds, and I noticed he was having a problem of understanding what I was saying. And I think that all of the calories were going. And then Ray being the strong finisher that I knew he was always in fights, I knew that combination meant there's going to be problems. And even though he looks like he's boxing, he's boxing off instincts. The movements is confusing, it's causing Ray problems because Ray is used to being a boxer himself. And when someone boxes him, it throws him off. But I knew that Ray was going to have a big onslaught coming up in the next second or minute or so, and I knew it was going to happen, and I knew it was going to be a problem.
And I think
and it wasn't a one particular one.
It's
It's not even a one particular solid blow. It was just a case of, I think Tommy just totally been going, plus Ray coming on strong, which he always would do in fights.
Well, now, just keep your eye on Ray, his right hand, and where it lands on Hearns, because right about here, there, look what happens to Hearns. Now, it didn't look like that thing landed at all. It looked like it went to the top of his head. Glance.
But Ray sensed out earlier that Tommy, even though he was boxing and moving, he could sense that Tommy was weakened. And it was just a matter of time, and he could feel it.
Now, Ray on the attack here. Now, watch, because this is what makes the referee stop the fight. Here, now, watch how many land and how many miss. Those are two good body shots by Ray. Now Hearns fights
No,
back.
you
Three
know,
punches back, but there wasn't any steam on it.
Even though the referee stopped the fight, there was not that many clean blows. Tommy came out unmarked.
See, there were three blows and he stopped it.
I felt that the referee was justified in stopping the fight and I never complained, and Tommy never complains anyway. But the fact that I could see, and I knew going in and around, that Tommy did not have enough energy to make it through.
I must tell you, you must be the only one in the United States that knew that, because I didn't know that. I thought he would take the last round and win the fight. Judge, again, many years of experience. Would you have stopped the fight at that time?
Well, Davey Pearl was a good referee. I think what made him stop the fight was that I don't think that Thomas was fighting back as much as he should. Ray was digging that left hand underneath. He hit him good upstairs. And, the referee's got a quarter-second window, and you live and die with what you do. Now, in hindsight's 20/20. I love what Manny said about no objection because he knew what was going on in the corner. I think it might have been a punch too quick. He might have been too early, but you only got the quarter-second window, and I'd rather be too early than too late.
Angelo, a little bit of disagreement as to the stoppage of the fight. Your reaction?
I think Davey Pearl should have stopped at the round before when Tommy Hearns went through the ropes. I thought Tommy Hearns was get ready to get himself knocked out, which he did later on. So I think Davey Pearl was looking back and say, well, maybe I should have stopped it before. I think Davey Pearl did a good job. Great referee. Can't say anything about the guy. Besides, my guy won.
See? Angelo's great. Case closed. Judge, you couldn't have stopped that fight in the 30s. They'd have killed the referee.
Yeah, Freddie, you made an interesting point, too. And I tell you, as a referee, and I tell referees now more so than I did then, once you make the decision, do not try and justify it, because they're going to eat you up if you do. Say, I had a quarter-second window, that's my best call, say what you want to. But if you try and justify it, they're going to eat you up.
One of the reasons you're admired, and other referees that have followed in your footsteps, is you take that position. That's my call. I'm living with it.
That's it.
Sugar Ray Leonard retains his title, becomes everybody's darling, and Tommy Hearn goes on to become just as big a champion as always because he kept knocking out everybody. A wonderful round of fighting for the 20th century.
Marvelous Marvin Hagler versus Tommy Hearns. War, 1985, round one. Sugar Ray Leonard isn't the only electrifying boxer on the American scene. Since 1980, 30-year-old Marvelous Marvin Hagler has dominated the middleweight division with less finesse outside the ring, but just as much elegance between the ropes. A fighter who has come up the hard way, Marvelous Marvin is the ideal match for Tommy Hearns, as Hagler makes the 11th defense of his title. Ticket prices are high, but plenty can pay, riding the wave of high growth and low inflation in the mid-1980s. Pay-per-view is the ticket that makes the big fights the biggest money event in sports. Hailing from the tough streets of Newark, New Jersey, Marvin Hagler, boxing's angry man, seeks the money, endorsements, and recognition that he deserves after 10 one-sided defenses of his middleweight title. No one trains harder and smarter than Marvelous Marvin, who genuinely hates his opponents. Undaunted by his loss to Sugar Ray, Tommy Hearns moves up to the middleweight division, rampaging through its ranks. He is on a roll when he meets Hagler, and he's determined to win.
Emmanuel Stewart, you were training him. You had a game plan, but you knew Hagler. You knew him well.
I've known Marvin Hagler since 1973 when he was in the amateurs. And Marvin was always a good, solid fighter, and I knew it was going to be a very hard fight. Tommy trained very hard for the fight, was in excellent condition, not to find any excuse, but still, Marvin devised a great plan. I think the only plan that he could devise, I think, that would be effective. And later on, he and I spoke about it afterwards. He said, Emmanuel, I knew I couldn't outbox Tommy Hearns. I saw how good he could box. I knew Tommy punched harder than I did. And the only way I could fight it was to try to make it an all-out brawl, make it close quarters, keep my chin as close as I could to my chest, and be very physical, because in all of the other areas, Tommy was superior to me. And he fought a great fight. He came out prior to the fight to make it even worse for Tommy, not knowing that Marvin was going to come out with the fury that he unleashed as soon as the bell rung. Marvin comes out and jumps right on Tommy right away. Tommy, being Tommy, stood and hit him with a one right hand that Marvin told us later on, said was the hardest he's ever been hit in his career, where he was hurt. He was staggered. He had to hold on for a few seconds. And after that, Tommy came at the end of the first round and say, I broke my hand. I said, what?
Broke his
I
hand.
said, I broke my right hand. It's broke.